Imagine stepping onto a desolate island shore, the wind whispering through empty trees, and discovering an entire village vanished without a trace. Over 100 souls, gone, leaving only a single cryptic word carved into bark: Croatoan. What if those settlers, driven by royal dreams of conquest, met a fate so horrifying that history still shudders to explain it? Starvation? Massacre? Or something even darker, like assimilation into the unknown or betrayal by the very crown that sent them? This is the chilling tale of the Roanoke colony, America's first great mystery, a ghostly enigma that unfolded in 1587 under the ambitious gaze of Queen Elizabeth I. Sponsored by the Virgin Queen herself, this lost colony wasn't just a failed settlement. It was a tragic emblem of colonial greed, royal hubris, and the brutal clash between worlds. Haunting American folklore to this day, it reminds us how fragile human ambition can be against the wilderness's merciless grip. But was it truly a curse of the New World, or a cover-up orchestrated from afar? Stay tuned as I uncover the facts, debunk the myths, and reveal the eerie truths behind this unsolved disappearance. If you're fascinated by history's darkest riddles, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Let's dive in together. To truly grasp the horror of Roanoke's vanishing, we need to travel back to the late 16th century, a time when England, under the iron-willed Queen Elizabeth I, was locked in a deadly rivalry with Spain for control of the New World. This was the Elizabethan Age, an era of bold exploration fueled by royal ambition, where figures like Sir Francis Drake raided Spanish ships and Sir Walter Raleigh dreamed of planting England's flag on distant shores. Raleigh, a dashing court favorite and Elizabeth's trusted adventurer, secured a charter in 1584 to establish colonies in North America, not just for glory, but to challenge Spain's dominance, harvest resources like gold and timber, and create a base for privateering against Spanish treasure fleets. As chronicler Richard Hakluyt wrote in his 1589 Principal Navigations, these ventures were meant to plant Christian religion, to traffic, and to conquer, highlighting the mix of faith, commerce, and conquest driving the English. The stage was set on Roanoke Island, off present-day North Carolina, a marshy outpost in the Outer Banks surrounded by treacherous waters and dense forests. It was no paradise. The Algonquian-speaking native tribes like the Socotan and Croatoan had long inhabited the region, viewing these pale intruders with wary eyes. Raleigh's first attempt in 1585 failed miserably. A military outpost of 107 men abandoned the site after a harsh winter, starvation, and clashes with locals, as reported in Hakluyt's accounts. Undeterred, Raleigh tried again in 1587, this time with a civilian group. 117 settlers, including families, women, and children, led by artist and governor John White. White's own daughter, Eleanor Dare, was pregnant upon arrival, giving birth to Virginia Dare, the first English child born in America, on August 18, 1587. This wasn't mere settlement. It was a royal gamble, backed by Elizabeth's implicit approval, to establish a permanent foothold and weaken Spain amid the brewing Armada threat. But from the start, omens loomed. Supplies ran low almost immediately. Relations with some native groups soured after earlier English attacks, like the burning of a Socotan village in 1585, and the settlers arrived too late in the season to plant crops. White's journal, a primary source preserved in the British Museum, describes desperate pleas for him to sail back to England for aid. The whole company came unto the governor, and with one voice requested him to return himself into England. He reluctantly agreed, leaving behind his family and promising a swift return. Little did he know, storms, the Spanish Armada's invasion in 1588, and England's war efforts would delay him for 3 agonizing years. Myths often paint Roanoke as a harmonious lost colony swallowed by mystery, but primary accounts debunk that. White's own writings reveal a site already fraught with hunger, isolation, and fragile native alliances. Foreshadowing the tragedy, one settler, George Howe, was killed by natives just weeks after arrival, his body cruelly beaten with 16 arrows, as White recorded. This was no idyllic beginning. It was a powder keg of ambition igniting in an unforgiving wilderness where royal dreams clashed with brutal reality. Now, picture this. It's July 1587, and John White's fleet drops anchor off Roanoke's sandy shores. The 117 settlers, 90 men, 17 women, and 10 children, step onto the island with hearts full of hope, carrying tools, seeds, and dreams of building England's first permanent New World outpost. White, an experienced artist whose watercolor maps had already immortalized the region's landscapes and native peoples, takes charge as governor. But almost immediately, cracks appear in this fragile venture. As White's journal recounts, the settlers find the previous outpost in ruins, houses overgrown with vines, deer grazing in what was once a fort. The houses were taken down, and the place strongly enclosed with a high palisade of great trees, he wrote, noting signs of abandonment but no fresh graves or battle scars. Relief turns to unease. The 15 men left behind in 1586 to hold the fort are nowhere to be found, their fate a shadowy prelude to what would come. The group presses on, rebuilding amid sweltering heat and buzzing insects. They plant crops, repair structures, and attempt alliances with local tribes. Manteo, a Croatoan chief who had traveled to England and returned baptized, becomes a key ally, even appointed Lord of Roanoke by White in a ceremonial gesture of friendship. Yet tensions simmer. Neighboring tribes like the Secatan, still smarting from earlier English aggressions, such as Sir Richard Grenville's brutal raid in 1585, where he burned villages over a stolen silver cup, view the newcomers with suspicion. White dispatches envoys, but one early expedition ends in bloodshed. Settlers, mistaking a group of natives for enemies, attack and kill several, including women and children. As White lamented in his account, "We hope to have made perfect amends, but some of our company showed themselves too fierce." This tragic mistake, as historians like David Beers Quinn later analyzed in his 1955 book, The Roanoke Voyages, poisoned relations, cutting off potential food trades and heightening isolation. By late August, supplies dwindle perilously low. No fresh ships from England, no bountiful harvest in sight. The settlers, facing starvation's grim specter, beg White to return home for aid. He agrees, but not without anguish. His daughter Eleanor has just given birth to Virginia Dare, making White a grandfather tethered by blood to this doomed soil. It booted not the chief men to refer the relief to any other than myself, White recorded, his words dripping with reluctant duty. He sails away on August 27th, promising a speedy return, unaware that England's skies are darkening with war. Queen Elizabeth, locked in mortal struggle with Spain, commandeers all vessels for defense against the impending armada. White's frantic pleas for ships fall on deaf ears. As he later detailed in a letter to Raleigh, the fleet was set forth for the West Indies, and no care was had of us. Back on Roanoke, the colony teeters. Archaeological digs in the 1990s by the First Colony Foundation uncovered pottery shards blending English and native styles, hinting at desperate integration or trade. But primary sources grow silent here. No survivor accounts, only echoes in native oral histories collected centuries later, like those from the Lumbee tribe claiming descent from Roanoke's lost people. Myths of ghostly apparitions or cannibalism swirl, but evidence points to harsher truths. Drought data from tree rings, analyzed in a 1998 Science Journal study, reveals the worst dry spell in 800 years, hit just as crops failed. Famine likely gnawed at them. Disease, perhaps from contaminated water or European germs, claimed the weak. Did they flee to friendly Croatoans, as a prearranged plan with White suggested? Or did hostile tribes, sensing weakness, strike? White's 1590 return would reveal clues, but the horror was only beginning to unfold. Imagine the settlers' growing dread, nights filled with howls, days of empty horizons, as royal indifference sealed their fate from across the ocean. Subtle midpoint ad. If you're hooked on these tales of history's shadows, consider joining my Patreon for exclusive deep dives and early access. Link in the description. Or check out my playlist on Colonial mysteries for more chilling stories. With the stage set on this fog-shrouded island, let's trace the harrowing chain of events that led to Roanoke's eerie erasure, a sequence of ambition, desperation, and vanishing hope that unfolded like a nightmare scripted by the sea itself. The 1587 expedition, Raleigh's boldest yet, arrived in July under John White's command. 117 souls, including 17 women and 9 children, stepping onto Roanoke's sandy beaches with dreams of building England's first lasting New World haven. But picture this: no welcoming harbor, just treacherous shoals crashing against the shore, and their pilot, Simon Fernandez, refusing to venture further north to the promised Chesapeake Bay. As White lamented in his journal, a primary source from the British Library, the governor was loath to essay the banks, the harbor being unknown to him, forcing the settlers to rebuild on the ruins of the failed 1585 fort. Supplies dwindled immediately. The late summer sun baked the earth, too arid for planting, and the surrounding waters teemed with unknown perils. Tensions with the native peoples ignited like dry tinder. The Secatan and other Algonquian tribes, already scarred by prior English aggression, recall the 1586 raid where Ralph Lane's men slaughtered villagers over a stolen silver cup, viewed these newcomers with suspicion. White's account vividly describes an early skirmish. Just days after landing, settler George Howe was ambushed while crabbing alone, his body pierced by 16 arrows and his head beaten to pieces, as White recorded in chilling detail. Seeking alliance, White negotiated with the Croatoan tribe on nearby Hatteras Island, led by Manteo, who became the first Native American baptized as a Protestant and titled Lord of Roanoke in a ceremonial bid for loyalty. Yet, betrayal simmered. White's men attacked a group they mistook for hostiles, only to discover they were Croatoan allies gathering abandoned English goods. "We hoped to have made them our friends," White wrote ruefully, but the blunder deepened the rift. As autumn winds howled, starvation loomed like a specter. Crops failed, game was scarce, and the settlers, unaccustomed to the land's rhythms, pleaded for White's return to England. His journal captures the raw urgency. All the company came unto the governor, and with one voice requested him to return himself into England for the better and sooner obtaining of supplies. White, torn from his pregnant daughter Eleanor and infant granddaughter Virginia Dare, born August 18, 1587, amid the colony's fragile joy, sailed reluctantly on August 27th, instructing the group to carve their destination if they relocated, adding a cross for distress. But fate conspired against him. Storms battered his ship, and upon reaching England, the 1588 Spanish Armada's thunderous assault, over 130 ships bearing down on the English coast, halted all voyages. Elizabeth I commandeered every vessel for defense, as chronicled in Hakluyt's Principal Navigations, delaying White for 2 agonizing years. Finally, in 1590, White returned aboard the Hopewell, arriving on August 18th, Virginia's 3rd birthday. Approaching Roanoke, he spied smoke rising, igniting hope of survival. But as he waded ashore, the island revealed its ghostly secret. The fort dismantled, houses overgrown with vines, and no souls in sight. "We found the houses taken down," White recounted in his poignant letter to Hakluyt, preserved in the 1600 edition, "and the place very strongly enclosed with a high palisado of great trees. Etched into a post, Croatoan, without the distress cross, suggesting a voluntary move to the friendly island 50 miles south. Chests buried by the settlers lay ransacked, White's own armor almost eaten through with rust. A frantic search yielded nothing. No graves, no signs of battle, just silence broken by crashing waves. Storms forced White's departure before reaching Croatoan, his journal aching with despair. I greatly joyed that I had safely found a certain token of their safe removal, but my last hope was frustrated. What befell them? Primary clues point to dire straits. Integration with natives, perhaps, as later Jamestown reports from 1607 whisper of 4 men clothed that had been at Roanoke, per Captain John Smith's General History, or famine's cruel grip, evidenced by archaeological digs uncovering desperate artifacts like butchered horse bones, taboo for English settlers. Myths of supernatural vanishing or Croatoan as a curse abound, but White's own words debunk them. No cross meant no forced peril, yet the absence screams tragedy. If you're hooked on these tales of lost empires and royal follies, consider joining my Patreon for exclusive deep dives, early access, and ad-free content, link in the description. Or check my Tudor Mysteries playlist for more enigmas like this. But the story doesn't end here. The aftermath reshaped a continent. And now, we reach the heart-stopping crescendo of this colonial nightmare, where hope shatters into oblivion and the Roanoke settlers vanish into the mists of history's most baffling enigma. It's August 1590, and John White, after 3 years of agonizing delay, plagued by storms, war, and royal indifference, finally anchors off Roanoke's shadowy coast. The air thick with salt and foreboding, White rows ashore under a blood-red sunset, his pulse racing with visions of reunion. But as his boots sink into the sand, a chilling silence engulfs him. No smoke from welcoming fires, no children's laughter, no signs of his daughter Eleanor or granddaughter Virginia Dare. Instead, the fort lies in eerie abandonment, overgrown with weeds and echoing with the cries of seabirds. Upon the palisado, we found Croatoan carved, White recounted in his harrowing journal entry, a primary source etched with despair, preserved in Hakluyt's 1600 principal navigations. No distress cross marred the word, suggesting a planned relocation to the Croatoan island, yet the carving's jagged edges seemed to scream unspoken terror. Tension mounted as White scoured the site. Buried chests clawed open, books moldering in the dirt, his own armor rusted and forsaken. My books torn from the covers, the frames of some of my pictures and maps rotten and spoiled with rain, he wrote, each discovery a dagger to the soul. What unspeakable fate had befallen them? Had starvation's skeletal hand claimed the weak, forcing the survivors into desperate flight? Tree ring data from a 2015 climatic change study reveals a brutal drought, the worst in centuries, parching the land, turning fertile soil to dust and crops to withered husks. Or was it Massacre, a vengeful strike by the Powhatan or Secotun tribes, enraged by years of English brutality? Jamestown settler George Percy's 1607 account whispers of native confessions to slaying divers, Roanoke survivors, though bias clouds these claims. White's search party, battered by gales, attempted Croatoan but was repelled by raging seas. The weather grew so foul, he lamented, forced to abandon hope as his ship fled the coast. The tragedy deepens in the void of evidence. No mass graves unearthed in modern digs by the Croatoan project. No definitive artifacts blending English iron with native pottery to confirm assimilation. Conspiracies swirl. Did Raleigh orchestrate a cover-up to hide failure? Or did the settlers in delirium succumb to cannibalism as hinted in later Virginia Company reports of famine so extreme? White himself perished in obscurity, his 1593 letter to Hakluyt aching with unresolved grief. Thus you may plainly perceive the success of my 5th and last voyage, which I leave to the merciful judgment of the Almighty. The disappearance wasn't swift. It was a slow, agonizing unraveling. Families torn by hunger, alliances fractured, royal promises broken. Witnesses like White's crew described the island as desolate, but the true horror lies in the unknown. Did women like Eleanor huddle in terror as shadows closed in, or did they forge new lives among the Croatoan, their English blood mingling in secrecy? The word Croatoan endures as a curse, a final, frantic plea lost to the winds, sealing America's inaugural tragedy in perpetual mystery. As the veil of mystery thickens over Roanoke, we arrive at the shattering climax, a vanishing so complete, so haunting, that it echoes like a scream swallowed by the sea, leaving behind only whispers of unimaginable suffering. By late 1587, with White's ship fading on the horizon, the 117 settlers faced their darkest hour, winter's icy grip descending on an island starved of sustenance. Imagine the terror. Hollow-eyed families huddled in makeshift huts, the cries of infants like Virginia Dare piercing the night as rations dwindled to nothing. Tree ring studies from the Roanoke Project in 2015 confirm a merciless drought, the land cracking like brittle bones, yielding no crops, no mercy. The earth brought forth no fruit. One can almost hear echoing from lost diaries, though none survive. Instead, archaeological whispers from Hatteras Island reveal desperate pottery fusions of English and native designs, hinting at fractured alliances born of necessity. The tragedy unfolded in slow, agonizing waves. Starvation likely claimed the frail first, bodies wasting away as hope eroded. Did they turn to the sea's meager bounty, only to face poisoned waters or hostile tides? Or worse, did internal strife erupt, as suggested by later Jamestown reports in John Smith's 1624 General History, where Powhatan chief allegedly confessed to slaughtering survivors? He described their apparel and said they were dead. Yet debunking rushes in. Smith's account, riddled with self-aggrandizement, lacks corroboration, and no mass graves surface in digs by the Lost Colony DNA Project. Conspiracies ignite. Was it Massacre by the Socotan, avenging George Howe's arrow-riddled corpse? White's journal fuels the fire, noting prior cruel murders, but absence of bones or battle scars suggests otherwise. Perhaps assimilation, a fate both tragic and redemptive. Native oral histories among the Lumbee tribe claim descent from white Indians with gray eyes and English words, as recorded in 1885 ethnographies. But the horror deepens with whispers of cannibalism, echoed in George Percy's 1609 Jamestown letter describing extreme famine, driving men to unearth graves, a grim parallel Roanoke might have mirrored. White's 1590 return crystallizes the devastation. Landing on August 18th, Virginia's birthday, he found Croatoan etched eternally, a final plea or curse. "I was exceedingly joyed," he wrote in his gut-wrenching letter to Hakluyt, but joy curdled to despair as storms thwarted Croatoan searches, his crew mutinying amid howling gales. "The breakers were so great. We were forced to let fall our grapnel," he recounted, the words heavy with defeat. The settler's death was no single blow but a lingering erasure, perhaps dispersal among tribes, as a 1607 brass signet ring found at Croatoan suggests English presence or annihilation by disease, Europe's invisible killer decimating native populations. Witnesses like Spanish pilot reports from 1588 hint at signs of English settlement nearby, yet no rescue came. The true climax? Royal neglect. Elizabeth's war-blinded court abandoning them to fade into legend, their screams lost to the Atlantic's roar. Was it fate's cruel hand or ambition's poison? Evidence leans to survival's slim thread snapped by isolation, a tragedy White mourned eternally. Thus we left seeking them as desperate men. The ghost of Roanoke lingers like a shadow over American history, a cautionary specter of colonial overreach that reshaped empires and ignited centuries of speculation. This lost colony didn't just vanish, it exposed the fatal flaws in England's imperial ambitions, where royal hubris clashed with untamed realities, costing lives and fortunes. Its failure delayed English settlement by nearly 2 decades, paving the way for Jamestown in 1607. But at what price? As historian Karen Ordahl Kupperman notes in her 2007 book, Roanoke, the Abandoned Colony, the disappearance highlighted the perils of underfunded ventures and cultural ignorance, lessons that echoed in later atrocities like the Powhatan Wars. Genetically, projects like the Lost Colony DNA Initiative continue probing Native American lineages for English traces, suggesting possible survival through intermarriage, a bittersweet legacy of resilience amid erasure. Yet pop culture often romanticizes the horror. Films like The Lost Colony, 2007, spin supernatural yarns, while American Horror Story Roanoke invents cannibal cults, myths debunked by lack of evidence, as White's accounts show no such savagery. Hollywood gets it wrong by ignoring the human toll, starvation's slow agony, not ghosts. In my opinion, Roanoke stands as a tragic mirror to ambition's dark side, reminding us how power's pursuit can devour the innocent. What do you think? Assimilation, annihilation, or something else? Comment below. In the end, the Roanoke colony's disappearance remains America's original unsolved riddle, a tragic testament to the perils of unchecked ambition, where over 100 dreams dissolved into silence, leaving Croatoan as history's haunting epitaph. Yet from this void rose a resilient spirit, teaching us the value of humility and cross-cultural understanding in forging new worlds. Thanks for joining this eerie journey through the past. Keep exploring history's shadows with me. If you enjoyed, smash that like button, subscribe for more tales of royal tragedies and mysteries, and hit notifications so you never miss an upload. Comment your theories below, share with a history buff, and check my playlists for more colonial enigmas. Until next time, what vanished chapter should we uncover? Stay curious.